Welcome back to the 9 News Business Buzz. I'm Ryan Frazier, 9 News business expert and CEO of Frazier Global. I'm here with Ed Sealover of the Colorado Chamber of Commerce and the editor of the Sum and Substance. We're turning our sights to a new statewide recycling program that could cost hundreds of millions of dollars to launch and is already sparking some major debate. Ed, before we get into how are things going?
Things are going well. They're busy as can be. Check up on tsscolorado.com. That's the Sum and Substance website for all your business policy news.
Now, this state law is creating a universal statewide recycling system for all Coloradans funded by the companies that produce packaging. While this producer responsibility model promises free curbside recycling for residents, it comes with a significant price tag for businesses and controversy over the process known as chemical recycling. We'll get into that a little later. And your reporting at the Sum and Substance shows that this is a massive undertaking. The initial estimates suggest it could cost packaging producers more than $300 million just to launch the program, with an annual operating cost of over $250 million. The goal of the program is to provide free and convenient curbside recycling to every community in the state, from urban centers to rural towns. For consumers, this sounds like a huge win. But Ed, is this program really going to deliver on that promise of universal free recycling for all residents? And what is the timeline for when people might see these new services?
Well, let's start out talking about the timeline, Ryan. This was passed as part of a 2022 law, so they've spent the last 3 years really developing this program. The fees for producers are supposed to be set by October 31st. They'll begin paying them in January, and by about June or July is when we're looking at free residential recycling being in place. Now, by 2028, they can begin expanding that to schools, government buildings, hotels, even small businesses over the next couple of years as well. So this is going to be very impactful if it comes off as it's supposed to. And for everyone who's now paying for recycling and saying, wait, what about me? I'm already paying for recycling. Those costs go away. The state is about to assume those when this goes statewide in mid-2026.
Yeah, now, I mean, I know many of us, I get my recycling done every 2 weeks. I know a lot of folks do. This program, as it's proposed, is going to make that, I think, weekly, right? In
some areas, and those are some of the details that are still be working out here. But.
Yeah. Now, obviously, a hefty price tag. I mentioned this at the outset of this discussion. Over $300 million to just launch the program, $250 million projected to operate it. Who exactly is going to be paying these fees, and what does the cost of this magnitude mean for companies that make these packaged goods in Colorado?
Well, these fees, or the dues as they're referred to, are going to be assessed on everyone who makes a substantial amount of packaging for products that are sold in Colorado, whether that be paper packaging, plastic, glass, aluminum, anything like that. They're going to be paying it. They're going to be paying per pound. So you've got various fees that they're going to set based on the recyclability of the material they use, and also based on the amount of material that's out there. For example, glass and paper probably starting at about 2 cents a pound, and then you've got things like film plastics or rigid plastics that can be up to 90 cents a pound because they're harder to recycle. So that's who's going to be paying it. Now, producers are saying this could be tough. Now, some producers are all in on this, and they say, yeah, we want to do this because they want an end market. The idea here is not just to increase recycling, but increase recycling, like, say, plastic that goes back to a source, is then broken down and used again. That's your end market there, and they like that. But other producers are worried. These are expensive. Some of these, especially plastics, as we're going to talk about, are going to cost more, and that may be incorporated into the cost of the products here.
Yeah, I want to go back to who pays for this, because Ed, you and I both know, being in the business world, working with many businesses, running a business, oftentimes when we hear that, you know, an industry or companies are going to pay for something, it ultimately means the consumer are ultimately going to pick up that cost. Give us your thoughts on that. Is this really something that will ultimately be passed on to consumers?
Well, it can't not be. The only question is how large the fee is going to be and how much that is going to be passed on. If you're doing 2 cents a pound for paper, you may not see an increase in paper wrapping, for example, but plastics in particular could add some costs there. Just to set the tone here, one of the reasons this was passed is Colorado, as much as it's known as a green state, has a terrible recycling rate. Some studies show it's as low as 16% of recycled materials going into recycling, which is about half the national average. The idea here is picking it up to 41% by 2030 and 55% by 2035. But even those numbers aren't enough for a group like the Colorado Consumer Coalition, who says we're going to be paying $300 million just to get it up to 55%. So I think the issue of cost is going to be one that's continued to be debated.
Yeah, cost, effectiveness, results, all of those. Now, one of the most contentious parts of this new program, as you reported last week on the Summit Substance, Ed, is the debate over chemical recycling. I know, big term. People are like, what is that, right? But this is a process that breaks down plastics into fuel or other chemical components. Now, environmental groups argue that burning plastic as a fuel isn't recycling, while industry groups say it's an innovative way to handle hard-to-recycle materials. Why is this definition so critical, and what are the stakes in this debate for the future of the program?
Yes, just to be clear, any group that takes plastics and breaks them down to be used as fuel, that can't be used toward their recycling content. That was part of the state law. However, chemical recycling also breaks down plastics, especially hard to recycle ones, into their base elements so that they can be rebuilt into plastic containers again. And for plastic makers, they say this is really key that you count this as recycling, because if not, A, we're probably going to just send a lot of this to the landfill, which is going to defeat the purpose of a statewide recycling program, and B, it'll be reflected in the cost. We'll see us paying even higher rates if we're not able to recycle some of this plastic. Higher rates likely means they'll be using less of that material, and using less of that material and producing less of that material could cost jobs. This is an issue that's not only big for groups like mine at the Colorado Chamber of Commerce, but labor unions are jumping in on this and saying, hey, let's be careful. We don't want to run jobs out of the state because we can't count this as recycling. On the other side of this, environmental groups say, look, you're taking this material and you're breaking it down in a way that it emits toxins into the air, and that frankly it uses a lot of fossil fuels to have to do this. There is a group called Beyond Plastics that has called for kind of a national cessation of this practice, period. The state is not looking at banning the practice. Instead, the chairwoman of the Producer Responsibility Advisory Board wrote a letter to the state officials saying, could you hold a rulemaking deciding should this count or not? The idea being maybe this is recycling, maybe it's not, but we need somebody more to weigh in on it. That's leaving a lot of uncertainty as the fees are about to be set and this program is about to move forward.
Yeah, just real quickly, Ed, this program is going to affect in 2026.
2026, mid-2026 is the goal.
Yeah. All right, Ed, we got to leave it there. A fascinating look at a complex issue. The bottom line is that while a new era of recycling is coming to Colorado, the details of how it's paid for and what it will actually accomplish are still being fiercely debated. As business keeps buzzing in Colorado, our goal is for you to stay informed, to be engaged, and to get ahead of the game. So continue to tune in for more episodes of the Business Buzz, where we take up news and business topics that are important to you and our economy. For the 9 News Business Buzz, for my colleague Ed Sealover, I'm Ryan Frazier. Until next time.